Under the fundamental analysis educational series, third part, specific data to look for when analyzing major economies. And it is time for services PMI. By far the most important PMI of them all in the United Kingdom. UK is a service-based economy, and changes in the services PMI are being treated with respect than the changes in manufacturing or construction PMI. We had such an example recently for the July releases. You will see the services PMI print was coming above the 60 level, which is quite impressive for an economy that is coming out of recession. And based on that, a couple of days later, the GDP has been upgraded, has been revised higher from 1 point something percent to 2 point something percentage, and this translated into an aggressive buying of the Great Britain pound all over the board on the currency markets. This is how important services PMI is as an indicator. So if you are looking at the manufacturing PMI, and that one comes in disappointing, so to say, but services PMI comes in better than expected, way better than expected, like it was the case for with the last release, then you should look for the GDP to be revised higher. Services PMI is by far the most important, like mentioned. Lately we had this example with the service PMI jumping over the 60 level, and a couple of days later the GDP has been revised higher. It is a survey based on managers in the services industry being asked to respond questions regarding the general level of activity in the company, employment level, and so on and so forth. And based on their answers, an index is being released, and the values are interpreted in relation with the 50 level. Higher than the 50 level shows industry expansion, lower than the 50 level shows industry contraction. It is being released on a monthly basis, the second business day after month ends, 8:30 GMT London time. It is released by market, and managers are being asked to respond questions relative to general level of activity, employment, so on and so forth. Like any PMI, as you probably get accustomed by now, it was the same in the United States, the same in Europe, the same in UK, will be the same in Australia and Canada. Like any PMI, values higher than the 50 signal industry expansion, values lower than the 50 level signal industry contraction. The release date is on a monthly basis. On the third business day after the month ends. The release time is 8:30 GMT during the London trading session, and the actual higher than the forecast, it should be interpreted as good for the currency, and if the actual comes lower than the forecast, it should be viewed as negative for currency. This one is the first tier data. It brings important volatility levels. It is a leading indicator of economic health. Looking at the 6 month worth of data for the services PMI, and this is when you should compare with data out of the United States and data out of Europe. This is services PMI. UK based economy is a service based economy, and on the past 6 months, 7 months I would say, because we had in the meantime the release for the last month, and it was better than expectation, higher than the 60 level. So on the last 6 months, from February till July 2013, we had values for the services PMI higher than the 50 levels all this time. Now what this means, values higher than the 50 for this indicator implies industry expansion. What industry are we talking about? We are talking about services PMI. Well, if services PMI are expanding, the expansion comes from 50 to 55, so above the 50, and the service and the UK based economy, the UK economy is a service based economy, then you should buy the pound on any actual better than the forecast on the release. Now if you are trading binary options here with us on binaryoptions.net.au, of course that you are not trading the currency pair, but you are buying calls or you are buying puts. But if your asset is related to the Great Britain pound currency, let's say with the Great Britain pound US dollar, the so-called cable, then on such a release better than expectation and into the expanding territory, then you should just buy calls, Great Britain pound US dollar calls on the release, and you should keep in mind that the release, it is coming monthly on the third business day after the month ends, 8:30 GMT, and you are looking if the actual is higher or lower than the forecast. That should be viewed positive for the currency, so buying calls on that release. We'll move forward with trade balance out of the United Kingdom, and this indicator is important and it will show the difference between exports and imports in an economy, and the result should be interpreted as an excellent or a deficit of the trade balance. And this is important because it deals very much with the currency flows that are going into a currency pair, and you will see that on the next recording. What's to keep in mind from services PMI, 8:30 GMT monthly basis, the most important PMI in the UK, and just make a comparison with Europe. In Europe, we are just heading toward the 50 level. In UK, we stood for the whole period above the 50 level, and this says something. Stay tuned for the next recording, trade balance in the United Kingdom.